we're back, episode 3. And this time I am really excited to have my guest Helen Chung here joining me. I met Helen, we were just talking about 8 years ago at a brand we used to work with. And I think from the first conversation in the kitchen to now, we've been through a lot. And what I appreciate you is you're always solution driven whenever there's any problems, concerns, challenges. You are the person that I think to go to figure out where to go. And I'm so happy to have you here to join us on Hot Perspectives, the show. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you, Mel, for having me on my very first podcast. So I'm super excited. And like I said, 8 years, that definitely flew by. And oh my goodness, I couldn't be more proud of the accomplishments and the journey we've been together. So thank you so much for having me on today.
You're welcome. And for the people who don't know anything about you, tell them a little bit about what you do in the franchising space.
Awesome. So I've been in the QSR, industry for almost 10 years now. And really my role is primarily around project management, brand development. So I've grown, very large multinational brands from, where they were stagnant in growth due to not having processes in place to sort of revitalizing these processes and developing. And, I'm proud to say that I think I have probably opened over 200 restaurants, in the last probably decade. And, truly, very proud of this accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always find it so incredibly amazing to see how you bring a drawing to me and say, operationally, like this makes sense, the flow is good, we're aligned, we're good to go. And to see that thing come from a drawing on a piece of paper to a physical build that's running and operating and has life in it, it's exceptional and incredible. And having done that repeatedly 200 times over your career is an accomplishment, and you should really be proud of yourself too.
Thank you. And sometimes I have to take a step back that not everyone read blueprints like I do. I see it as a 3D, and most people see it as just blocks, right?
Yes.
So bringing people along the journey has been wonderful, educating them as well.
Amazing, amazing. And that is what I'm excited to dive into today is franchise development, right? Brands want to grow, they want to get into new markets, they want to scale quickly, but sustainably. And having your insights, having done it 200 times, I'm really incredibly looking forward to learning from you and maybe hearing some stories of success and failures and how we can get to 200, right? How we can get to 200.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here to be an open book today. If I can help even one franchisee or brand grow, I'm more than happy to provide all tools and processes, right?
Nice. Give us the insights, the hot takes.
The hot take, hot perspectives.
Yes.
We've got this. And I think you really hit the nail on the head on sustainable growth, right?
Yes,
So I'll dive a bit more in that, I guess.
Sounds good. So I know this is your first time on the show. So how we do it here is we put the questions into the baggie and we tackle them one at a time. And we ask for your honest, open, transparent views. They're your views alone. You don't represent any brands, but you're just giving us your personal take on things.
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
Let's dive in.
Ooh, I get a pick.
Yes.
All right. What does...
No, hand it this way. Hand it this way. Hand it this way. Okay. How does effective cross-functional collaboration look like during expansion?
Okay, that's a deep question for our first one,
I know.
but I love it. And you're going to hear a lot of analogies throughout the podcast because I'm a visual learner, and I feel that, I use a lot to help my team or the team visualize, right? So from again, expanding a brand takes a lot of people, cross-functionally, right? So I always look at it as a relay race, right? Where, everyone doesn't necessarily have to start at the same time, right? Everybody has their own lane, right? But the handoff is very important, right? And the ultimate goal for every member on that team is to reach the finish line first, right? But not necessarily at the same time, right? So when I look at, successful cross-functional team or building cross-functional teams, I talk about empowerment because, as a leader, you're not going to be able to be a one-person show, right? So you need to empower your team and the subject matter experts because you're not going to know everything, right? So it goes from, real estate, franchising, down to operations, supply chain. How does each team sort of play a role in your expansion?
Yes.
And it's also important, as a leader, you also want to make sure that you do pulse checks, right? Create these feedback loops to ensure that you succeed as a team, right?
Yes, yes. And I'm happy that you brought in the different examples of teams and functions that feed into scaling a brand efficiently, sustainably, is making sure everybody is at the table so that we allow the subject matter experts to be subject matter experts and own their part of the overall project.
Right, and I think it's also important to bring your team along on the journey. Ensure that your expanding into a new market is to recognize the complexity, right? We would be here, sort of lying to ourselves of saying it's not complex. Right. So what I want to do is I want the team to acknowledge the complexity, but not to fear it. Right? To me, I'm building it up as a team that is able to face these challenges, but not view them as barriers. Right? So as a leader, you create that vision, right? And that motivation as to why we're doing this. We've expanding this market. At the same time, you want to set the team up for success, right?
I think the point that you made about sharing the why and sharing the long-term vision and goal with everybody helps so much with that alignment. Helps so much that when things come up, because things always come up, everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows how it affects their specific piece. Right? So can you tell us a little bit about how you create that environment as a leader that does bring everybody along, that creates a space for effective feedback loops and keeps the communication flowing?
Yeah, I think it starts, like I said, with the vision, right? And then cascading that down into KPIs for each.
What are KPIs for the people who don't know?
Key performance indicators, right? So how does each team or function feed into a KPI? Or ultimately, in layman's term, how do you impact, the overall goal? And for me, I'm very results driven, right? If I understand how my work or what I'm doing can feed into success of the company or that goal, I am more motivated, right, to attain that. And at the same time, you're going to have, some tough conversations as well, right? And as a leader, you have to be prepared to have those conversations. That's why feedback loops, like, we talked about, is very important. Right? Staying on track.
When I think about cross collaboration and systems or tools that work well, I used to work for a brand that would bring cross-functional teams together once a week or bi-weekly to review the projects that were impacting the brand, right? And it'd be a quick update. This is what's going on in this function. These are the projects that are feeding the goal. And these are the people who have accountability over those projects. And I thought it was such a great way to, again, kind of understand how your specific role and what you do feeds into the overall brand growth, brand image, brand goals, right? And so I've seen how impactful that can be, and I see how opposite that could be when it's missing from the story, from the team, from the communication. Are there any tips or tools that you could leave leaders with, maybe specific programs or cadences or examples that you can leave with leaders who want to build that into their project management?
Right. So I think, for me is a lot of, I think I've seen teams fail because leaders sort of manage through fear, right?
Ooh.
And so what I do is in these weekly checkpoints, or sometimes we call them war rooms, we're there to support one another, right? If, a team hasn't necessarily met their target or their goals, you want to understand from a leader why that was missed, right? And what you can do as a team or as a leader, or sometimes you may yourselves as a leader be part of the team to support, right? So I find that collaboration is key, right? We're not just dictating tasks. Where I'm a hands-on leader and how I can support, right? And have them be more comfortable enough to come to me and say, you know what, this goal is going to be missed. Or sometimes, a room, and when you lead by fear, I find team members will just say, yes, those are realistic timelines, and then they are missed, right? So I really take the time to understand the processes, right? And really question, are you sure that you can do this? Typically, it takes this long, but you're telling me it's 2 weeks. Like, how are you going to achieve this goal, right? So again, I always say collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Really propels you forward, but acting in silos actually slows you down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think the word that comes to mind when you give that example of that situation is psychological safety, and how you create, again, a safe space for feedback, for honestly, we're going to have challenges meeting this deadline, or we're going to clear miss this deadline. And as a leader, instead of leaning on judgment, you're leaning on curiosity first. Well, why, right? Why are we, what got us here? Because sometimes it has to do with the work, the process, but sometimes it also has to do with the people. And maybe they're going through something, or they're managing something, even outside of work, that's having a ripple effect or an impact. As a leader, I think it's so important to acknowledge that we're not machines, right? We're people. And telling people, don't let your personal life have any impact at all on you when you show up to work is just, it's not realistic.
No.
And so what's maybe one tip you can give leaders who are maybe struggling to create those psychologically safe environments where their teams feel safe to share? What's a tip that you can maybe share with leaders that are hoping to do that?
For me is getting to know the person, right? Not just from a business perspective, but like you said, from a personal, because as much as we say to disassociate work and personal, that's just not reality, right?
Yeah.
Even myself, sometimes if I'm having like a crazy weekend with, the boys I have, and I come and I'm exhausted, and, to have that space to myself for my team to realize. And likewise, recognizing that, my team has worked through the weekends, like, so were you able to check in? To me, check in the mental health, right? And I always emphasize work-life balance, right? And if I've seen that they've worked in a long hours, like, please go, have dinner on us here, expense your dinner, right?
Yeah.
But it's a small thing that shows that you care as a leader, and getting to know why, especially if it's sort of out of characteristic that they've missed a deadline when they've always been on top, right? So getting to know them, and like I've said before, when you care about a person, it shows through. You're authentic as a leader, right? Or I've told, you know what, don't go to this meeting, I'll step in for you in this meeting. You've had back-to-back meetings, let me step in. I'll take some key takeaways if I need to escalate to you. Step away, take a moment to yourself, right? And always, like I said, when people feel like someone cares, they are motivated to go above and beyond, right? So I genuinely lead with the people first mentality, right? And I've seen it transition to very successful, high-performing teams.
Amazing. I'm going to throw one more at you, a quick question at you on this topic.
Yes.
Because it is something that I see leaders really struggle with sometimes in creating that safe space to share. And sometimes that relationship is there at the beginning, is there over time, but something happens to damage the trust,
Yeah.
to shift. Something happens and things shift in the relationship. How do you as a leader, because I do believe it's the responsibility of the leader to step up in those situations and acknowledge that there's been a shift and talk through how we can get back to a place of trust and rebuild. What's something, or maybe there's an example you can give of a time where maybe trust was broken or that shift was felt? How did you get things back on track with that team member?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think this is where it is so important to build trust, right? For them to be comfortable with also providing you feedback, right? So
Yes.
bottom up feedback, right? So when that happens, I expect, it doesn't even matter about titles and sort of reporting hierarchy, but having, a team member call you out, right?
Yeah.
And I've had an example where actually it's very to me it actually brought us closer. So I had a team member. He's was very junior on my team, and I thought I was helping him out by saying, another project is coming up, and you're working on 10 projects at the same time. Let me give this project to someone, right? And I thought I was doing a favor, didn't even ask, and just assigned the project to someone else, right?
Good intention.
Good intent, 100% good intention. But then he found out through the other, project manager why he wasn't given this project. And to me, like I said, with good intentions, thinking I'm helping to offload, but from his perspective, it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why wasn't I given this responsibility? And I always use this as, like I said, when very junior, he probably just graduated from school. To be able to call me out, literally ask, can I have a meeting with you, right? And I can tell you I was taken back, right? Because like I said, I'm coming in with good intention, but seeing his perspective, right? Thinking, why wasn't he asked, and let him decide, right? So I love these kind of feedback loop. It doesn't just have to be top down. So something like that, if he had held it in, right? If that trust wasn't there, I feel like he would have had that, like, I'm at risk of, maybe I wasn't performing, but for him to have that.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
It does. And it just made it so much closer. And to me, it's having that transparent conversation or having that space to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, it was a proud moment. Like, it was like a proud mama moment. Almost like, yes, you have made it,
Yeah.
And I could have taken back, be very offensive by that, right? But I'm like, wow, I never thought of it as your perspective, right?
Never saw it that way.
Never saw that way, but having that open dialogue, right? And it's just, and I've asked for his permission to kind of share it with the team and say,
as an example of
of
how we can come back from it.
100%.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually really happy you shared that example because I often do really lean on whoever has the perceived power or leadership in that space to take the initiative. But I like that the example you shared actually showed how through building that trusting relationship, you empowered that person to say, hey, something doesn't feel right, something shifted, I'm offended by this, or I'm not okay with this, and feel safe enough to say, hey, let's have a meeting, let's discuss it. That says a lot about you as a leader and the importance of that heavy lifting to build that trust in the onset of the relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy you shared that
Thank you.
example. That's a good example. Yeah.